Hello, I'm Clint Wilden. It's Anzac Day 2021, which for many of us, sadly, looks awfully like Anzac Day 2020. But like last year, we do have a program, starting with the dawn. Music there from the film 1917. And now to our stories, all of them different, but all of them sharing the spirit of the Anzac.
He's a drover drifting over western plains. It's a city light clocked down Fiddler's Lane. You're in the trenches at Long Pine. They're on the plants firing a line. Willing men of ordinary men. He's all of them. He's one of us. Born beneath the Southern Cross. Side by side, we say with pride. He's all of them.
Saturday, 8th of February, 1969, Vietnam. Australia is 7 years into a war that started with just 30 advisors. That would grow. It now involves Army, Navy and Air Force, and is particularly brutal. There are so many stories from this war. Here's one. First, two names to know. Huey is the nickname of the American Bell Iroquois helicopter. Noddy is the nickname of Australian flying officer Wayne Parsons. Noddy's love of flying started with fixed wings. His career ended with 747s. In between was Vietnam and the Iroquois.
It was the world's first turbine-powered helicopter. A magic aircraft. Absolutely magic. The Air Marshals didn't understand the Huey and its capability because they were used to the old Dragonflies and Bristol Sycamores with their underpowered, gets hot, they won't fly, can't fly. This thing, the more power you pull, the better the engine goes.
Well, Noddy, I don't want to be too pointed about this, but there's not much room in there, no room to swing a cat. How do you feel being back in that spot?
Like being home.
Well, there's no way in the world this thing's going to fly, but if it were flyable, would you be able to fly it now?
It'd take me a little while, but it's a bit like riding a bike, David. Once I got the hang of it, yeah.
On that Saturday in 1969, Noddy and his Huey would be truly tested. They were heading back to base when a call came for any winch-equipped helicopter in Phuoc Tuy province. The Battle of Hat Ditch was raging in instalments, and an Australian platoon was pinned down.
They'd happened into a bunker system, and these bunker systems were so designed by a very shrewd and cunning enemy to be completely invisible until somebody wandered into the bunker system. And there were bunkers and firing foxholes with self-supporting fire across virtually a killing field.
In that killing field, the platoon's radio operator had been shot.
He took the full impact in the radio set, and of course it destroyed the radio, but destroyed most of his back. So our boys weren't going to move until I got him out.
The first rescue attempt was made by the Americans.
The American helicopter went in over the top and received intense ground fire and was so severely damaged they had to cable cut this fellow just as he was coming off the ground. And so they hit the cable cut and got the hell out of there and crash landed about 5 kilometres away.
Now it's Noddy's turn.
On the way to the grid reference given, 607929, I had to think, now, how the hell did that helicopter get shot down and how can I avoid it? And I determined that if I could nestle a helicopter in the top of a big bushy tree, hopefully there would be one in the vicinity that they could get to the winch going down the cable, I'd be pretty right, because I'd be invisible to those on the ground. We came in the top, and as luck would have it, a big, bushy, primary jungle tree was there, and I nestled the helicopter down in the top branches of this tree, hiding amongst the foliage. My hover reference was a branch out here. And a bit further ahead than that. But there we sat. And down went the cable. And meanwhile, as we approached, we could hear the gunfire intensity on the ground increasing to a bloody crescendo, because the Viet Cong knew that to get a chopper was a prize. Temporal distortion just takes over. Time just slows down, and the bullets going by instead of, you know, everything just slows down. The picture of the windscreen going in front of my eyes, just don't think about it. Just concentrate on the job, maintain a steady hover, and hope to goodness when we retrieve the litter with the patient, the litter doesn't snag in the trees.
It didn't snag. The Huey was up and off like a rabbit ahead of the pack. But a crewman told Noddy that the patient was dead.
I said, well, he was alive when he left the ground. Do what you can to get the vital signs back, please, Jock. So he was busy with that. Meanwhile, I was redline speed. The knots here stop at 120. Well, I was doing 135. Right on the verge of retreating blade stall, which in a helicopter, if you run into it, it pitches you up and rolls you left rapidly. And usually the rotor flicks off and goodbye, good night, Charlie. Anyway, or good day, Charlie, you're going down. Charlie was the nickname of the VC.
The Huey made it back safely, and the wounded man was showing vital signs when they landed.
Unfortunately, later on in the morning, early morning Sunday, the 9th, we heard that he'd passed away. And sorry, I always crack up at this point. Yeah. Rest in peace, Malcolm. God, we gave it our best.
Postscript. Wayne Noddy Parsons' military service is acknowledged with a swag of medals. His actions that one day in Vietnam did not add to the tally.
He's a pilot on a midnight bombing raid. He's a naval seaman on the Armadale. She's a nurse in Vietnam. They're on patrol in Norris Gang. Sons and daughters rising to the cold. She's all of them. She's one of us. Born beneath the Southern Cross. Side by side, we say with pride, she's all of them. She is one of us. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
He's an extraordinary Aussie bloke with extraordinary insight into the lives of people from the Australian outback. That's what it says on the back of his published book of poems called Talking to an Aussie.
Yes, it's just a simple story that you've all heard before. But that old farmhouse down the road stood long before the war. In grander days it was a home, a house out on the land. In better days it gave shelter. Its walls were strong and sound.
Victor Dale was born in Kalgoorlie in 1945. As it happened, it was on the day the European War ended. To celebrate, his father gave him Victor as his first and Churchill as his middle names.
Old Tom had fought the Japanese, the Owen Stanley Trail. His wife was born on the goldfields, the town at Comet Vale. Their children grew and played out there, ran all through the garden. The old school bus would wait out front, where time begs our pardon. For any kids, when you move in, those days moved into a new town, well, half the town wanted to fight you, because that was the way it was in those days. So we went through all that. There was no one in that town poorer than we were. And so we lived on hand-me-downs and we copped a fair bit of flack. And in those days, you had to bloody fight. I don't mean that lightly, because if you didn't, you were going to get trampled.
So are you a fighter?
Or was then, just for survival. I never went looking for it. They bought that farm and made it work, raised 3 girls and a son, and sat each night on that front porch, surveying what they'd done. But the winds of time were changing. Fate came knocking their door. Conscription rolled across the land towards the Vietnam War.
While Victor was applying for both a shearing school and the fighting school, the army replied first. So to Vietnam.
You're at an age where, God, life was throwing adventures at you. Why not take them? I think Vietnam, some ways, or the army, was made for me because of my childhood days when my father was a woodcutter, and we lived in the bush for quite a long time, and I'd been doing a lot of roost shooting and all that sort of thing. I was everything they needed. Well, I was a damn good shot with a rifle. I wasn't afraid of being on my own in the bush.
The Australian bush is vastly different from the Vietnamese jungle.
Only to the sense the jungle is close up, but you still have that inner sensory around you. And that's saved my bacon on a few occasions. Some people say you can smell trouble. I know when it's there. I've just got a gut feeling on it. I have left my years behind me, somewhere I used to be, on the wrong side of my future, lost in uncertainty. I have slowly walked toward you, not knowing where you are, dreaming somewhere I would find you, from just beyond too far.
Back in Australia and years later, the legacy of Vietnam, Agent Orange, was felt. These would be hard years. Victor was underground in the mines and drinking heavily.
You have absorbed that chemical through your skin. And he said it will take between 12 and 16 years, but eventually it will hit your nervous system. And when it does, you're upside down. I was not losing control of my mind, but I was becoming far more and more nervous. I wanted to be solitude. I didn't want to be around people. And it was affecting a marriage. There was 2 children there. And in the end, it cost me the marriage. It cost me a business. And I would say for at least 2 years, I lived in the bush pretty well on my own. I have lived and cried 1,000 years to be with you tonight. Now I understand life's reason, my stars shining so bright. Old tears flow freely from my heart. No more I'll cry alone. You are the dream in my journey, and at last I am home.
Happy in a second marriage.
Thank you.
Happy in Coolgardie and no longer upside down, Victor Churchill Dale spins the threads of his life into an art form, bush poetry, because he's a poet and a bushy at heart. Okay, let's end this. As a bushman, what's been the best part of your life?
I think just simply to be at peace with yourself.
In the bush?
Anywhere.
In Coolgardie?
Yeah,
In Perth? Anywhere?
yeah,
And you are that now?
yeah.
Spirit of the Anzacs, proud and strong. Spirit of the Anzacs will live on and on and on. He's all of them. He's one of us. Won't be.
Greg Wallace made his first surfboard when he was 27. His achievement was life-changing.
Just felt this instant explosion of passion, you know. I recognised that I'd felt passion for the first time in my life, and then I realised that I would have an ability to continue it and build boards. And then I thought, what happens if I get to the end of my life and think that I never gave it a crack? And that was it. You know, I would hate for my tombstone to say he was good at watching TV.
Even though we are making TV right now.
Yeah, you know, but yeah, good point.
Okay, so let's crack on. It's lonely out here. It's as if the place has passed its use-by date. Well, almost. Let us show you an example of human interaction that beats any loneliness. Just follow the directions Greg has given. The wool has long gone. The shed is empty. It's a workspace with no hard rules for those who come through the door to work. There is a mantra, though, Greg's, of course. No past, no pain, no position.
When people come in, we don't ask them what they do, don't ask them what they did, and we don't ask them what's wrong. So it's not out of not caring, it's because we care so much. We want to provide an opportunity, you know, one day a week or one day a month where they can come in and nothing's wrong. See how that line's just a little bit funky?
Greg Wallace makes and sells surfboards stamped with his Bodhi tree label. Think Buddha. Meditation. Think enlightenment. It certainly came to Greg.
I think what I learned, I had a shitty attitude towards people in uniforms, you know, military and cops and things like that, from growing up with drugs and stupid things like that. And I had the perception that everyone in the military was a bit of a meathead, you know, but it's just, it was the thing that slapped me around the most was realising that's not true. Is that the people that enter the military or any uniformed service is because they want to serve, they want to give back, they want to make a difference. And then just check it with this bit to make sure that you're clean on the top and the bottom join.
As well as his board making, Greg has a background in health and welfare. He has never served in the military or worn a uniform. These lads have, and they had the mental scars to show for it.
I was diagnosed with PTSD. It took about 8 years to work that out.
I've made peace with what I've done and what I've seen and done.
As a soldier?
As a soldier.
Did you have to make peace?
Well, it's cost me a lot. So it's cost my relationships and stuff like that with my partner, and cost relationships with friends and family.
A lot of issues, anger, no sleep, always stressed, constantly vigilant, and yeah, it just catches up with you before you realise.
Greg Wallace, a sometime hippie, and these war-damaged men. How's this going to work?
Personally, I'm not equipped to deal with it, so we mitigate that coming into the shed because all we do is offer people the experience of making a surfboard. You know, we have all their rehab providers and psychs and psychiatrists or on the end of the phone all the time.
That's not your work.
That's not my job. No, my job's just to show them how to make a surfboard. Yeah.
Oh, I think you're being modest. It's more than that.
Well, so I provide an environment. I provide an environment that will allow them, I don't know, a sense of peace. And I think the sense of peace is what does some of the healing. It's not me. I just facilitate a space.
You leave everything behind at the door. You come into a world here that you can forget about everything else, and you're creating something.
He's not just a surfboard builder who runs a company. He's, in his own way, he's a therapist himself, I believe.
It's bigger than me. It's bigger than Greg even. It's more about getting the guys and girls in the door who are suffering with whatever they got and get them making a board, joining the community and then being able to ride the board.
I suppose he's like the manager that we all wish we had, like when we're in uniform.
Mean that there's a gap at the bottom.
High praise indeed.
I reckon that looks wicked.
I reckon that'll be all right.
But the vets probably know there's no miracle at the end.
I'm told there's no cure for PTSD, but we learn how to allow for it in our life and deal with it, basically. But this is good, you know, doing things like this and surfing, and you know, to know that I'm pouring all this effort into something that I can actually use to help myself.
So they come with their referral, word of mouth, once a week, a fortnight, a month. They come through that second roller door to work on a beautiful board, which will be theirs. What happens when they walk out?
They take it with them. That's the coolest thing, is because each step is so visual and so tactile, they can see those progressive stages and they're invested in creating from day one. So when they leave, that creative process is still happening in the mind, so they think about it when they're away. So that's very different from thinking about the past, isn't it? You know, they say that if you're in the past, you're depressed. If you're in the future, you're anxious. If you're in the present, it's a gift.
The man with the guitar was Troy Fleming. You saw him last year as part of the Australian Army Band. Our thanks to Troy, to Noddy, to Victor and to Greg. With their help, that's how we saw Anzac Day 2021.